Echoes of the Forgotten, the group's plan. The story begins in Sarah's dimly lit apartment. She has invited her 3 friends, Tom, Emma, and Mike, to discuss rumors of disappearances near an old forest tied to a vanished cult. The group is skeptical, but curious. Sarah lays out a stack of yellowed newspapers and an old map showing the forest's layout, marked with cryptic symbols. Mike teases Sarah for believing in ghost stories, while Emma nervously flips through the articles, her unease growing. Tom, always the practical one, points out the potential dangers of venturing into an area so isolated. Despite their doubts, they decide to investigate, spurred by Sarah's insistence that the truth lies hidden within the forest. The forest entrance. The group arrives at the forest's edge at sunset. The once vivid orange sky darkens unnaturally fast, and the forest seems to breathe with an otherworldly energy. The trees are ancient, their gnarled branches intertwining overhead like skeletal hands. Emma hesitates, feeling an inexplicable sense of dread. It's just a forest, Tom reassures her, but even he can't shake the unease creeping into his chest. As they cross into the forest, the air grows colder, and the silence deepens. The first carving. A few minutes into their trek, they stumble upon an ancient tree with a strange symbol carved into its bark, a circle with jagged lines radiating outward. Sarah recognizes it from the map, but doesn't mention it, worried about alarming the others. Mike, always curious, reaches out to touch the carving. The bark feels unnaturally warm, almost alive. Suddenly, a low hum resonates through the air, so faint it could be imagined. Emma shivers, whispering, "Did anyone else hear that?" The whispering begins. The deeper they venture, the quieter the forest becomes. No birds, no insects, just the sound of their footsteps crunching leaves. Then it starts. Faint whispers, barely audible, carried on the wind. The whispers grow louder, forming distorted words that sound like their names. Sarah, the voice is faint but unmistakable. She spins around, flashlight trembling, but no one is there. Tom brushes it off as paranoia, but Emma clutches his arm. "Something's not right here," she says, her voice shaking. Mike laughs nervously, trying to lighten the mood, but his voice sounds hollow. Discovery of the cabin. The group stumbles upon an old, decrepit cabin hidden among the trees. The windows are boarded up, and the door hangs slightly ajar, creaking in the wind. Strange symbols, similar to the one on the tree, are scratched into the wooden walls. Mike insists they go inside. Despite Emma's protests, the air inside is thick with the smell of mildew and something metallic, like blood. Sarah finds a broken lantern on the floor, while Tom notices a pile of old books and tools that look like they haven't been touched in decades. The journal. On a rotting table, they find a leather-bound journal, its pages brittle with age. The entries describe the cult's rituals, chants, blood offerings, and invocations to the echo. One phrase is repeated: "What is taken is never truly gone." Emma slams the journal shut, her hands shaking. "This is insane," she says, her voice cracking. Mike smirks, but even he can't hide his unease. Sarah pockets the journal, determined to learn more. The first separation. As they leave the cabin, Mike hears a soft voice calling his name. It's faint, but it sounds like his late mother. Ignoring the others, he wanders off into the fog, drawn by the sound. "Mike!" Sarah shouts, her voice echoing in the silent forest. They chase after him but quickly lose sight of his flashlight. In the distance, they hear faint laughter, high-pitched and childlike, chilling them to the bone. Mike's encounter. Mike follows the voice deeper into the woods, his flashlight barely cutting through the oppressive fog. The whispers grow louder, and he sees a figure standing ahead. A woman, her back turned. She looks familiar. "Mom," he whispers, his voice trembling. The figure turns, slowly, revealing her face. It's his mother, but her features are wrong. Her eyes are hollow, her smile impossibly wide. She stretches a skeletal hand toward him, and when Mike steps back, she lunges with inhuman speed, her face distorting into a monstrous visage. Mike screams, dropping his flashlight. When the others finally find him, he's pale and shaking, muttering incoherently about the woman in the fog. The group regroups. The group drags Mike back to the path, but his behavior is unsettling. He refuses to speak about what he saw, his eyes darting nervously into the shadows. Sarah checks the map, but the forest seems to shift, making landmarks unrecognizable. "I swear this wasn't here before," she mutters, pointing to an unmarked clearing. Tom suggests they head back, but the path they came from is gone, swallowed by the forest. Emma snaps, "We're lost because of this stupid idea." Her voice echoes unnaturally, as if the forest is mocking her. Mike begins humming a strange tune under his breath, sending chills down everyone's spine. The stone altar. The group stumbles upon a moss-covered stone altar in a circular clearing. The air is heavy, almost suffocating. Symbols identical to the one on the tree are etched into the altar's surface, along with rust-colored stains that look like dried blood. Tom approaches cautiously, shining his flashlight over the runes. "This is some kind of ritual site," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. Emma notices blackened candle stubs arranged around the altar, and Sarah finds animal bones scattered nearby. Suddenly, the whispers return, louder this time, rising to an almost deafening crescendo. The group covers their ears, but the noise seems to come from within their own heads. Distorted time. The group checks their phones and watches. Every device is frozen at 3:33 a.m. Sarah's phone battery suddenly drains from 70% to 0 in seconds. "It's broken," Emma says, but her voice wavers. Tom's watch ticks backward for a moment before stopping completely. Mike starts laughing hysterically, his voice echoing unnaturally through the clearing. "Time doesn't exist here," he says cryptically, his eyes glazed over. The group stares at him, unnerved. The forest feels darker, as if the trees themselves are pressing closer. The photo. As they leave the clearing, Sarah trips over something buried in the dirt. She digs it out and finds an old black and white photograph. Her heart stops when she realizes it shows their group, wearing clothes from decades earlier, standing in the very same forest. The edges of the photo are burned, and the expressions on their faces are wrong. Instead of looking happy or curious, they appear terrified. Into the background of the photo, a shadowy figure with glowing eyes lurks among the trees. "What the hell is this?" Emma whispers, her voice shaking. Sarah pockets the photo, but she can't stop her hands from trembling. The hooded figures. The group notices movement in the fog. At first, it seems like shadows, but soon they see hooded figures emerging silently from the mist. Their faces are obscured, and they glide rather than walk. The group freezes, unsure whether to run or stay silent. The figures circle them, whispering in a language none of them understand. One figure reaches out a hand towards Sarah, its fingers unnaturally long. When she steps back, the figures vanish, dissolving into the fog, as if they were never there. The ritual clearing. The group presses forward, desperate to escape the oppressive forest. They emerge into a massive clearing. The ground is etched with glowing runes arranged in concentric circles, and at the center is a tall stone obelisk, covered in the same symbols they've seen before. The air hums with energy, and a faint red light pulses from the obelisk. Sarah feels drawn to it, her feet moving involuntarily. Tom grabs her arm to stop her, but the moment he touches her, he screams in pain as a deep gash appears on his palm, though he never touched anything sharp. "I don't think it wants us here," Emma whispers, her voice barely audible over the growing hum. The obelisk's visions. As the group debates their next move, the obelisk flashes, flooding the clearing with light. Each member sees a horrifying vision. Sarah sees herself, older and haggard, standing in the forest alone, screaming for her friends. Emma sees her body lying in a shallow grave, her lifeless eyes staring upward. Tom sees the forest burning, and within the flames, hooded figures chant his name. Mike, now completely unstable, laughs and mutters, "It's already too late." When the light fades, they're all left trembling, unsure if the visions were real or imagined. The marking. Sarah feels a burning sensation on her wrist. When she pulls back her sleeve, she finds a fresh black mark resembling the cult's symbol. "Does anyone else have this?" she asks, panicked. Tom checks his arm and finds the same mark. Emma and Mike, however, remain unmarked. "It chose you," Mike says cryptically, his voice low and chilling. He starts walking toward the obelisk, muttering a chant from the journal they found earlier. The chant grows louder. Mike's chanting becomes louder and more guttural, his voice blending with an otherworldly resonance. The forest responds. Trees bend unnaturally, and the runes on the ground glow brighter. "Mike, stop!" Sarah shouts, but he doesn't respond. His body convulses as if controlled by an unseen force. The group rushes to stop him, but as they approach the obelisk, they're thrown back by an invisible barrier. The ground begins to shake, and a deep, echoing laugh reverberates through the clearing. The awakening of the echo. The obelisk splits open, revealing a swirling void of black and red energy. From within, a massive shadowy entity emerges. The echo. Its form is ever shifting, its face a twisted amalgamation of human and inhuman features. Mike collapses to the ground, lifeless, As the entity steps forward, its glowing eyes fix on the remaining 3. They try to run, but their legs feel rooted to the ground. "The echo feeds," it says, its voice a cacophony of screams and whispers. "The sacrifice." The entity reaches out a clawed hand toward Emma, who begins levitating. Her screams are cut off as her body contorts violently. Sarah and Tom try to pull her down, but it's as if she's already gone. The entity absorbs Emma's body into itself, growing larger and darker. Sarah collapses, sobbing, as Tom grabs her arm. "We have to move," he shouts. The entity whispers, "Run all you want. You'll return." The final escape. Sarah and Tom manage to break free from their paralysis, sprinting through the forest. The trees seem alive, blocking their path and clawing at their clothes. They hear the entity pursuing them, its footsteps shaking the earth. Tom trips and falls, urging Sarah to keep running. She hesitates but obeys as the entity envelops Tom in darkness, his screams fading into silence. Sarah bursts out of the forest, collapsing onto a deserted road. She looks back, but the forest is silent and still, as if nothing ever happened. The haunting aftermath. Weeks later, Sarah sits alone in her apartment, the journal open on her table. Her wrist still bears the cult's mark, and her nightmares are filled with visions of the echo. She hears a faint whisper in her empty apartment, "You'll return." When she looks in the mirror, her reflection doesn't move. Instead, it smiles. The eternal cycle. The screen fades to black after Sarah's reflection smiles, but faint whispers continue to echo. Slowly, the scene transitions to a new forest, eerily similar to the one Sarah escaped. A group of 4 hikers, 2 men and 2 women, stands at the edge of the forest, laughing and debating whether to enter. One of them holds a map, eerily similar to Sarah's, marked with cryptic symbols. As they step into the forest, the whispers begin again, growing louder with each step. The camera pans up to the treetops, where Sarah's face briefly flickers, her eyes glowing red. Her voice echoes, "What is taken is never truly gone." The screen cuts to black, leaving the audience with the hum of the echo's haunting chant. Sarah's descent. Back in her apartment, Sarah becomes consumed by the journal and its contents. Each page seems to change when she looks away, revealing more cryptic symbols and fragmented entries from past victims. One night, she discovers a chilling note written in her own handwriting. "You brought it back with you. The only way out is to return." The whispers grow louder in her apartment, and shadows begin to move independently. She finds herself staring at her own reflection for hours, unable to remember when she last slept. A visitor at the door. One stormy night, Sarah hears a knock at her door. She hesitates, but eventually opens it to find a man drenched in rain, his face pale and desperate. "I've seen it too," he says, stepping inside uninvited. He introduces himself as Daniel, claiming to have escaped the echo years ago. "I thought I was free," he says, trembling, "but it never lets you go. It just waits." He shows Sarah his wrist, where the same mark glows faintly. As they talk, the lights flicker, and a faint hum fills the air. Daniel freezes, his eyes wide. "It's here," he whispers. The warning. Daniel explains the true nature of the echo. It's not just a spirit or a demon. It's an idea, a hunger that infects and spreads. The forest is its anchor, but it can manifest anywhere if you carry its mark. He warns Sarah that the mark isn't just a curse. It's an invitation. When it's ready, it'll take you back. And this time, there's no leaving. Sarah refuses to believe him, but as he speaks, the hum intensifies. A shadowy tendril creeps from under her bed, wrapping around Daniel's ankle. He screams as he's dragged into the darkness, disappearing before Sarah can react. The forest beckons. After Daniel's disappearance, Sarah's mark begins to burn, pulling her toward the forest. She tries to resist, but finds herself standing at the edge of the woods once again. The trees are even darker than before, and the whispers now carry her name. Sarah, return, complete the circle. Against her will, she steps into the forest, the journal clutched in her hands. Reunion with the echo. Sarah navigates the forest, which seems even more alive and hostile than before. She reaches the obelisk, now fully restored and glowing with malevolent energy. The entity emerges once more, its form even more monstrous and defined. This time, Sarah recognizes faces within its ever-shifting form. Emma, Tom, Mike, and now Daniel. "You cannot escape," the echo says. "You are part of me now." Sarah drops to her knees, realizing the truth. The journal was never meant to guide anyone out. It was meant to lead them back. The final choice. The echo offers Sarah a choice. Become part of it willingly, or it will consume her and spread further into the world. Sarah opens the journal, Flipping through the pages frantically, she finds a hidden passage written in blood. Sacrifice the marked to sever the chain. Realizing what this means, she raises her marked wrist and places it on the obelisk, whispering, "I'm sorry." The forest erupts in blinding light. The reset. When Sarah awakens, she's back in her apartment. The mark on her wrist is gone, and the journal lies closed on the floor, its pages blank. She feels relief until she hears the faint sound of footsteps outside her door. Opening it cautiously, she finds a new group of hikers looking at a map and debating whether to explore the forest. She tries to warn them, but her voice catches in her throat. One of the hikers looks at her and smiles knowingly, their eyes glowing faintly. A quiet return. Months after Sarah's encounter with the echo, the forest appears dormant, its whispers seemingly silenced. Sarah has vanished entirely, leaving behind only the blank journal in her apartment. A new couple, Mark and Lisa, drives down a rural road near the forest. Their car breaks down just as the sun sets. Frustrated but determined, they spot a faint trail leading into the woods. Maybe there's a cabin or a house nearby, Lisa suggests. Unaware of the forest's history, they venture in, the trail disappearing behind them as they walk. The unseen watcher. As Mark and Lisa navigate the trail, they notice the woods are unnaturally silent. No birds, no insects, just the crunch of leaves beneath their feet. Unbeknownst to them, a shadowy figure watches from the treetops. Its eyes glow faintly, tracking their every move. Occasionally, a low whisper echoes, but when Lisa asks Mark if he heard it, he shakes his head, brushing it off as her imagination. Discovering the obelisk, the couple stumbles into a clearing dominated by the obelisk, now dormant and cracked. The ground around it is overgrown, but the faint outlines of runes remain visible. Lisa approaches the obelisk, mesmerized by its strange energy. "What is this thing?" she whispers, running her fingers along its surface. As she does, a low hum begins to vibrate through the air. Mark pulls her back, but the damage is done. The runes flicker faintly, as if awakening. The mark spreads. Lisa feels a sharp pain in her wrist and yanks her sleeve up, revealing a fresh black mark, the same occult symbol Sarah once bore. Mark looks at his own arm nervously, but he remains unmarked. "We need to get out of here," he says, pulling her away. As they leave the clearing, the forest begins to shift, the trees twisting unnaturally. They hear faint whispers. Welcome back. Complete the circle. If you liked this story, I invite you to visit our channel, where you will find other similar ones. Give us a like and subscribe.